What's going on, gang, and welcome back to another episode of Scared of Normal. I'm Mike Murfitt, and today I'm joined by my wife and guest co-host, Cheyanne Murfitt, and today we're talking about embodying success. And if you don't know who Cheyanne is, she's built an incredible online community and business, so stay tuned for a full episode that we're going to do with her in the future. But after she heard our previous episode where I sat down with Sean to talk about making it count, we got into talking about something that's really helped us grow personally and in our businesses, and that something is embodying success. And I just want to give you, Cheyanne, a special shout out because you are the first woman to be on Scared of Normal. So thank you for being here. This is exciting.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to keep this trend rolling forward. We've got some really exciting women guests that are planned in the future. So yeah, stay tuned for those. And I'm really excited to do your full length episode as well.
I'm excited for it. I think
it'll be so cool.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be super fun. But before we get into today's episode, I want to talk to you about our new Snap Chill cans. These cans are incredible, are they not?
So freaking good.
Yeah, they're so good. Each can packs 224 milligrams of caffeine in an infinitely recyclable, adventure-ready vessel that's ready to go when and wherever you go. We have 3 different roasts available now, including our flagship blend, which is stable. And that one will always be available in these cans. It has tasting notes of red apple, dark chocolate, and lemon. And we also have 2 limited edition seasonal roasts available at the moment. One of those is Summer Blend, which Cheyanne's sipping on right now. That's been one of her favorite that we've done so far. And Summer Blend has tasting notes of stone fruit, chocolate, and agave nectar. And the other one, which is my personal favorite, it's a natural process Colombia, and that has tasting notes of ripe blackberry, chocolate, or cocoa, and silky mouthfeel. So grab a can today by hitting the link in the description of this episode. And if you have any questions about these cans or any coffee for that matter, definitely let us know. So let's get into it. We've all heard the term, right? Fake it till you make it. But what the fuck does that mean? You know, like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's a hard thing. Like, everybody always says, fake it till you make it. Okay, well, what am I faking?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? So, in short, you know, it just means to, like, consciously cultivate an attitude or a feeling, or perception for that matter, of competence that you don't currently have by pretending to do or be something until it comes true, right?
Yeah.
So, I know for myself, like, I'm guilty of doing that. And I've seen you do it. And everybody I know that has seen any sort of glimmer of success has also done that, right?
Yeah, that's been something that was honestly really, really hard for me to start doing in my life, because I feel like my story is so different from your story, and you've kind of like grown into who you are over years and years and years, and you had like this very specific vision, and I didn't. And so when I started to make moves towards a different like lifestyle or different dreams or goals, like that was something that I really, really struggled with and had to get over and had to learn how to fake it till I made it.
Well, what's the term that we always talk about? I can't remember exactly what it is. It's like, I don't know why this one always slips my mind. Where you feel like you don't deserve it. What's that called?
Oh, like limiting beliefs?
Limiting beliefs and like, why can't
Imposter
I remember? Imposter syndrome.
Imposter
Exactly.
syndrome, yeah.
That one always slips my brain for some reason. But like, you know, we're plagued by that. Everybody is. We don't feel like we deserve certain things. And like, you know, I really do admire people who have never really experienced that imposter syndrome, and they can run towards those goals. And like, they really embody that faking it till you make it kind of mindset, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't possess that skill. So and I've seen you in your personal life and your business life, like really have to cultivate that. Right. And so, yeah, let's talk about like what that looks like and like how you achieve, you know, faking it and making yourself believe that you deserve and that you can move forward and you can do hard things and, you know, changing your lifestyle to accommodate those hard things. So
yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about the first thing, right? Like, is deciding to do that.
Yeah.
So the word decide literally means by its Latin root word to cut off, right? Like you are cutting off every single other option. You are deciding to move forward with what's in front of you.
Yeah. I'm a big book nerd. I like to read a lot of personal development books. And this was pulled out from a book that I'm currently reading by Jen Sincero. I think I'm probably messing up her last name. But yeah, she alludes to this example about the deciding factor. So like deciding to start a business or deciding to like whatever it is that you feel passionate about, whatever it is that you're deciding to do, she's relating it back to some of these movies where like you're climbing a mountain and like, I mean, I can't even remember the name of the actual movie where, and it's a true story where he like falls into a rock and his arm gets stuck.
Oh, yeah.
And he literally has to decide that he is going to live and he is going to get out of this. And so every action that he took in pursuit of like survival was literally to cut off his arm, right? Like that's so crazy. But it's the same thing in business, right? Or the same thing in anything you decide to do in your life. If you really truly make that like definite decision that this is going to happen, this is for me, this is exactly what I want to do with my life, you're going to cut off everything else. Like every other distraction, every other excuse is going to like fall by the wayside because you are so in pursuit of what that decision is for you. You're so in pursuit of like achieving that thing or continuing to live your life or whatever it is. So,
well, it's something Sean and I talk about a lot, and we've talked about it a number of times on this show so far, is not having a plan B. You know, there's no backup plan. So if you have that backup plan, realistically, like by definition, you have not made a decision. You have not decided what you're doing, because if you think like I'm going to fall backwards on X, whatever it is, in your head, you're saying this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
You're not deciding that it is going to work. Whatever it is, whether, you know, you're going to, I always use running a marathon for some reason, but that, or if you're going to be, you know, a business owner or whatever it is, if you are planning for plan B, you are basically, you know, planting that failure in your head because you're saying there's a glimmer of this might not work.
Yes.
So just make that decision, decide what you're going to do, and put all of your entire energy into that. Embody that success, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that is something that, like, I told you right before we started this, but like, this is something that for, 4 years now with Traction, like there has been no backup plan for us in like our world. It's that Traction is going to work. Yeah. Like, this is what you are going to do. This is what your passion is. Like, there's no backup plan of, oh, well, what if you got a 9-to-5 or something like that? Like, that's not even on the board for us.
Well, like talking about that in your personal life, right? Like you just retired from your career as being an elementary school teacher because you're putting all of your energy and you've, put your cards into, you're going to make your business work.
Yeah.
So, you've made the decision, and that's a hard thing to do. Like, I watched you go through that process. I was there, and like, having to remind you every day of that decision making, and anybody listening right now, that is the thing. It's like, you have to make that decision to pursue whatever you're doing. You have to make it wholeheartedly, because if you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you're going to be just that. And your success is going to be just as half-assed as your entry into whatever you're wanting to be successful at, right? So
yeah. And I think for me with that decision, like that really was like that moment of, okay, there is no backup plan. Like I had that backup plan for a while because I was simultaneously like full-time teaching and growing my business on the side. And so that teaching was like that comfort, right? It was like, okay, well, I know that this paycheck's coming in every month. I know that I have this, and I know that like I'm good at this and I can continue to do this. But when the second that I made that decision, and I literally like, I remember it, and you were out of town that
yeah, I was in California.
You were out of town, but I remember like sitting there in my classroom, and I was like, okay, like I'm deciding this, and I'm like, I'm ready to do this, and I'm ready to make this choice, and I'm ready to make it official. And so I remember emailing my principal, and I went in there and I like made this big choice of like, I'm not coming back next year. This is done for me. There is no backup plan. There is no like comfort of like this safe job. And the second that I did that, like everything shifted, everything like changed, everything like my entire being felt different, like felt lighter, felt excited, felt stoked.
You're more nimble and more powerful in that, because you're limiting where your energy is going.
Yeah.
And when you can say, okay, I'm pouring into this thing that I care about, you know, obviously you need a job to make money. So like, you know, sometimes you do have to work 2 jobs and make the dream come true. But sometimes there becomes that point where you have to jump and just say like, okay, like this business, or if I want to be a professional athlete, like there's a certain point where you have to risk it all. You have to put that energy in there because, you know, those beliefs lead to the thoughts, and it's just this like, you know, foot in front of the other kind of thing. And like the more momentum you get behind that, the faster and better you're going to, you know, see that success.
Yeah. And I think the thing like with the beliefs and the thoughts and action and stuff is that we're like constantly moving through our worlds and moving through our days, and we're doing things, we're having actions, we're making things happen, but it's whether or not that's like beneficial towards the life that we want to live or the dream that we're trying to achieve. And it really does. It all like backs up into like that belief that we were talking about. Like if there is a backup plan, or there is like, you know, any doubt in your head, then you're already telling yourself that like this isn't going to work. And so it starts with that like belief of, no, this is going to work. This is exactly what I'm meant to do. This is exactly where I need to be. And the rest of it just like falls in line.
Faking it till you make it.
You're faking it.
You know, you're embodying success. And, you know, when you start to do that, like you said, you know, you've committed all of your energy into your business. So, you know, the byproduct of that is you're pushing that imposter syndrome away, you know, because when you are, you know, having that plan B, the backup plan, that imposter syndrome creeps in every day. It's like, well, this is comfortable. Going to work every day is comfortable. You know, that 9 to 5 is comfortable, whatever it is. And the second you eliminate that, the comfort goes away. And you are out there swimming in the deep, dark ocean trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And you're alone. You know, you don't have that backup plan. And like, usually that is an equation for greatness.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like that catalyst that's going to throw you forward because, or it doesn't, but.
I mean, sometimes, you know, sometimes that invokes failure quicker too.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've talked about this a number of times as well, but failure is not bad. You know, so failing faster is usually a good thing too, because if you can pick up the pieces and move forward, you're going to be in a good spot. But you generally, if you're, you know, half in, half out, you're prolonging what that failure looks like. And like, that's a hard place to be in too, because, you know, if you're, you know, barely, you know, dipping your toe into your business or whatever it is, being an athlete, and, you know, then you fully commit to it 10 years later, where you're going to be resentful that you didn't do it 10 years ago when you were thinking about doing it. You're not going to be as impactful. You're going to have wasted time, and you're going to be mad that you went to that job, or you sat on the couch and watched Netflix and ate a bag of chips, or whatever it is. Like, so just decide, make that decision, and fake it till you make it, and embody what's in front of you. And, you know, we watched a podcast the other night that was pretty fascinating with somebody that I haven't thought about or heard about in a long time. It's Shia LaBeouf. And he brought up this really good example. And I'm stoked that you wanted to add this in here, because it is something that stuck with me as well. And he said, if you were given a bad diagnosis, you know, at the doctor, you'd live out every action, thought, or experience with intention and urgency. You know, so why are we not doing that with our decision to be the athlete, or to be the entrepreneur, or to be the artist? You know, we're not seeing like this like terminal diagnosis in front of us, but in reality, like the one thing we all know is that we are dying. So act with urgency. That is the one thing we're all guaranteed. So really, like, you should wake up every day and put that best foot forward, and like really go for the things that you love and believe in. You know, I'm not discounting the fact that, again, you have to show up and go to work, or you have to make a living, you have to eat somehow. But, you know, we can figure that out, and also be intentional with our time and how we're spending our lives.
Yeah. And I think that that's all that, you know, that goes back into the mindset and the beliefs of, you know, what's propelling you forward. And when you do have that mindset of like, no, my life is so precious. Like, every day that I'm given is an opportunity to live out my life to the very fullest. Then you do start living it with intention, and you do start living it with urgency. And sometimes I think the things that, I mean, I've experienced it in my own life, the things that I used to think were really, really important, or really, really like I have to do this or I have to do that, right? Like those things just all start to fall away because it's like, no, that's not what's most important to me. That's not going to get me to where I want to go.
Yep.
So yeah, I loved that interview. You definitely have to check it out.
It's so good.
Shout
I
out
can't remember.
to it. I can't remember either.
What the podcast was called, but
Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. He talks about going through, AA and becoming sober and like, obviously he's a world-renowned, super famous actor. He's incredible, but he talks about his own life being consumed by that and like thinking like, I can't be this person who thinks he's the shit anymore and like killing his ego and like all these things. And like in that interview, he talks about he made the decision to better himself and not be this person who's always trying to like wiggle his way out of situations or whatever. And it is pretty fascinating when you think about that because, for him, he's a very unique example because he was a childhood star. Nobody's ever told him no. And like throughout his life, he's just kind of done whatever he's wanted. So for him to realize that and want more, that was inspiring for both of us to watch. And, if you have some time, go give it a listen because it is so good.
And I think it's cool too to like realize that there isn't ever really going to be a point in your life, a point of like success where you're not going to constantly like want to grow yourself even more.
Yep.
And I think that is like one of the raddest things ever.
Yeah, he covers that in that too. In that episode too, is he says, when he was getting into AA and stuff, he was like putting on this facade. He was acting because he wanted to like show people like, look, I can be sober. And he kept falling back into his old things. He, he wasn't making a decision. He was just trying to play the part.
Yeah.
And I think we're all kind of guilty of that too. Like, I think there is some confusion with like, there's faking it till you make it. And then there's also creating a facade that you're not standing behind. Faking it till you make it. You're swinging hammers and you're doing the hard work and you're, filling your cup and you're trying to, make it. But when you're creating a facade, you're just trying to look the part.
Yeah.
You're not actually doing the hard work on the back end to get to the point where you are going to make it. Right. So he talks about that in there as like, there was a very firm point where he was like made that decision that he was going to stop putting a facade together and he was actually going to do the hard work. And he might have been faking it, but he was going to make it work to the point where he knew he could show up as, his sober self, which, can be related to creating a business or being an entrepreneur or an athlete or whatever. Like it's a lot of hard work and dedication that goes into all of those things. And it's a decision. It is a decision at the end of the day.
Yeah. A decision and like a reason, right? Like the reason why you're pursuing something can either be your biggest excuse or it can be your biggest reason why you continue to push forward.
Yep. And there's a saying that's stuck with me more recently over the last year. And it's nobody's ever climbed in a mountain by accident. Like be intentional with your time, make the decision, embody what you're doing because, you're never going to just wander yourself into some success. There are rare stories of people getting lucky, but like it's very few and far between.
Yeah.
And generally when somebody gets lucky, like most people you talk to who are successful that, people are like, oh, they just got lucky. It's like, no, they showed up every day and they did the hard work. And now, they were there when the opportunity presented itself because they worked every day and they, made the sacrifice and they did all of those things to be present for the opportunity. So, it's when hard work meets success. Is that what the quote is? Like, that's when luck happens. So it's like, or hard work meets opportunity. That's when luck happens. And, there's no such thing as just being successful. There's no such thing as being at the top of the mountain without having to climb it. You didn't do that by accident. You have to freaking work for that. So
yeah. I mean, we even wrote in our notes, like overnight success is not even, it's not a real thing. Like it's years and years and so much time spent like pouring into who you are or who you're in front of or, like creating the lifestyle of what it is that is going to give you that overnight success. But it's years of doing that, of growing and pushing and striving for it. And I feel like in my own personal story, I had a very similar like experience with that of like, I don't want to get like too much into it because we'll definitely talk about it more another time. But I had shown up in an online space and built an online community for 3 years before I started an actual business with it.
Yep.
And I was able to see pretty quick growth once I decided to turn, what I was doing into a business. But it was the only reason it was successful in the way that it was, or, you know, the growth came quicker, was because there was 3 years backing it of every single day, showing up, trying to add value, making connections, building relationships.
Yep. Building a community, a true community, you know? And so when you do plug a business into that, then it's like this emulsifying effect. But, you know, we don't see the hard work, especially in the world that we live in, because you just see the highlight reel.
Yeah.
So you don't get to see like the late nights responding to, in your situation, DMs or messages or whatever it is. Like you don't get to see that, and like figuring out what kind of content to post on your Instagram or whatever. Like, you know, and that's in all businesses. Like I say it all the time. Like, you know, we hear from a lot of people like, oh, what you guys are doing is so fun. It must be nice. And like, it is. It really is. We are having a blast. We live in our utopia every single day. However, that doesn't mean that we're not sweeping the floors and mopping the floors and dusting and cleaning toilets and like all the unfun stuff that comes along with it, you know, like doing inventory. I fucking hate doing inventory.
Unclogging toilets.
Yeah, it's like, dude, it's just, it's the stuff that comes along with it that, like, you know, the headaches that, you know, we're all guilty of not talking about that stuff enough. In fact, like 9 times out of 10, when somebody asks me how my day is going, I'll never tell them that, like, all the fucked up shit that I had to do, because like you don't want to bring somebody down, but like in reality, like there is a lot of hard work and back end that goes into stuff that is unseen. So just be aware of that too when you're going through this like fake it till you make it. It's like, you know, we talk about it a lot, peaks and valleys. It's a lot of ups and downs, and there's a lot of, you know, plateaus that you're going to get to where you're just cruising along for a long time, and you're going to be asking yourself, why in the fuck am I doing this? Yeah. Well, if you've made that decision and you're embodying what you believe in, if you have that belief system, you're going to keep showing up. And next time you get to that next hill to climb up, it's not going to be a problem, because you're going to have the momentum, because you are embodying the decision that you've made. So, you know, what does it mean to be the most successful version of yourself, of you, in what you do every day? You know, how do you wake up? How do you spend your time? Who are you surrounded by? What do you consume? You know, this is all a part of faking it till you make it and embodying success. Like, you have to be crystal clear with that mindset. You know, you have to be, and we've talked about it a bunch. I've probably said it in every single episode that we've done so far, but be very intentional. Yeah. Right.
Well, and I think like when we're talking about embodying success, or we're talking about like becoming that next best version of you, that is, you know, the person that's able to achieve the successes that you're wanting to achieve, there is like that back work to it. Like, it doesn't just happen. It's not just like, okay, I decided I want to do this, and now it's like, it's just going to happen for me. I'm just going to like be that person. There's so much that like goes into rewriting those beliefs, or training, you know, your mindset so that you are somebody who like gets up every morning and you know what it is that you want to do every morning. Like, this is something I feel like I'm currently working through right now. Like, it is almost September. Typically, I would be back at school right now. Like, I'd be in the classroom, and now I'm not. It's amazing, and it's so good, and I am so grateful for where we're at right now. But I'm relearning a lot of things, and I'm relearning, and I'm having to like sit there with my own thoughts and decide what kind of person I do want to be. What goals I have, and like what kind of person I am as I show up for that. And you know this, but like I've started going to the gym, you guys. Like, this is something that's not easy for me. But I've realized, and I don't, maybe you can relate to it, but maybe not. But for me, like working out in the gym was always something that I talked myself out of all of the time. Like, I'd get really inspired, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go, 3 times a week, or I'm going to show up every morning, and I'm going to do this and this and this. And then I was constantly like letting myself down. I was constantly like this person who gave up on herself. And I don't want to be that kind of person. And I don't think that that's the kind of person that's going to get me to where I want to go. I can't give up on myself constantly. So now we're like 2 weeks in.
And you've gone almost every single day.
I've gone almost every single day.
You made a decision.
I went this morning right before we got here for this podcast. So it's like I made that decision and I made that choice of like, okay, the person I want to be doesn't give up on herself. The person that I want to be shows up and she pours into herself in other ways outside of her business. And I think that that's also really important to note that like embodying the success or faking it till you make it, it's not always just the actions that are going to like lead you into your business, right? It's not always just like, I'm going to network today, or I'm going to post on social media, or I'm going to show up in my stories, or whatever it is. Sometimes it's things outside of that. And we were talking about it earlier, but it's like, what kind of release can we find in our days? Because that release is so important, especially as a business owner.
Yeah. Well, you don't like, I think it's something too. It's like I talk to you about this a lot too. It's like, we think we can plan out our whole entire lives, and you have to be very fluid with your days, especially when you are an entrepreneur or an athlete or whatever it may be, because like, I think we all can look at situations in our lives where we're like, we planned everything out and everything went completely fucking sideways and nothing went the way that you thought it was going to go. We did a t-shirt that said control is an illusion, because in reality, we have control over absolute nothing, right? But if you can say, this is what I want to do, and just work towards that every day, but also be open to other opportunities. Like for you, you've seen this opportunity of going to the gym and you've said, cool, that helps me build my business. So not being so strict in the way that you think you're going to improve yourself, but being open to opportunities. Maybe it is going to the gym, or maybe it is meditating, or going for a run or a walk, or drinking a gallon of water whatever it is. Just like be open to these things that are, not by the book, or like, we talked about it, I think yesterday at lunch, we were talking about like how many people want the secret to success, right? Yeah. And we've all seen the Staples commercial where there's an easy button. Yeah. And I think there's this like facade, or like, this, people look at like success is like a holy grail. If I can just find it, if you can just tell me what it is, what do I have to do?
They want like a roadmap,
and
a
it's
plan, like this step by step.
Success for everybody is different, and like you can't teach success. In fact, like if you follow somebody else's roadmap to success to a T, everything they've done, you're going to end up so off base, because their belief system is not your belief system. You've got to find out what that is for yourself. And we've talked about this in episodes before too, but find your why, and really chase that, make that decision. Because once you do that, then you will be open to these other opportunities and growing in a way that's not this strategically planned out thing. I'm not saying don't have a plan, because like a plan is good, but just be aware that like you can make adjustments to that plan, and you can seek other opportunities and be open to things that can come up. Because like you're saying, it's like you didn't know that going to the gym was going to make you more impactful in your business. It just has.
Well, and I think what you were talking about with like control is an illusion, and there's so many things in our world and in our day that we don't have control over, but there are some things that we do have control over, and we do have control over how we spend our time. We have control over our mindset. We have control over whether we go to the gym or whether we don't go to the gym, right? So I think that also part of that, just embodying success, it's taking control over the things that you can control, and you can control yourself, right? You control how you react to situations. And for me, I've realized that going to the gym allows me to be a better person in those aspects, right? Like I have better mindset. I have better beliefs. I feel more energized. I can like take a situation so much better when I'm, have this like place when I have this place to release everything that builds up throughout my day, and I have that time for myself. And it really does push me towards, being able to handle the things that I can't control with pouring into time with the things that I can.
Totally. So when you're out there faking it till you make it, be open to these other things that can help fill your cup and re-energize you, right? Yeah. And I think, the next big thing is like focusing on, how you can make yourself like incremental amounts better every single day. Is it 1%? Like, I talk to a lot of people. I'm fortunate to know a lot of people, and like a common thing I hear from people who are wanting to pursue things is, I don't have enough time. And, you know, we all can find extra time in our lives. And I know how busy everybody can be. I know how busy I can be. And I'm guilty of saying that too. I'm so busy, I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
But we can find time. You know, we can not watch that extra episode of Netflix, or we can wake up a little earlier, or we can not be on Facebook or Instagram. Whatever these things are, like, we can find extra time to pour into yourself 1%, you know, or make yourself 1% better every single day. Is it, you know, going out and building a treehouse in your backyard that you've always wanted to build? Go pound 10 nails every day. Whatever it is, like, take a step to make that happen. You know, if it's just 1%, that's 1% more than you would have done if you sat there and watched that extra episode of Netflix, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, when you are making that shift and you're making that, like, that energy shift too, of like, I've decided on this thing and I want this, you have to clear space up for yourself, right? Like, you have to release all of the extra things in your world that are consuming you. So you have to release the Netflix binging. You have to, like, go through the people that you're following and, like, unfollow things that aren't serving you. Like, you're in control of what you consume.
Well,
you're in
even
control
in like your physical life too, right? Like, we've talked about this a lot. It's like, you know, we've had to start making decisions of, like, who to go hang out with and when we can make time for that. And like, those are hard decisions to make. You know, but it's hard to say, no, you can't go do something.
Right.
However, like, when you have made the decision to chase after whatever it is you want to chase after, and if somebody is expecting you to go do something that's going to pull you away from that mission, you know, you have to be selfish and you have to check in with, hey, what's the decision that I made? And is this serving my decision? You know, and sometimes you have to, like, put yourself in this, like, cave of, like, okay, all I'm doing is focusing on growth and making myself better, because not to say that other people in your life aren't important, but if it's not serving you and growing, helping you in that growth arena, then you're going to be, you know, you're going to start feeling that imposter syndrome again. And like, you know, I've said it, you know, 2 episodes ago, is like, really respect your time, you know, and the second that you start putting other people's time over yours, it becomes a very slippery slope. And you're not going to be able to really focus on embodying the success that you want to see, because you're pouring into somebody else's life. And, you know, that's a good thing to do. Don't get me wrong. But if you're not doing that for yourself, you're overlooking a lot of the opportunity that could be in front of you, you know? And a lot of the moments that you could use to better yourself or grow. Yeah. So.
Well, and I think that's too, you know, that piece of, like, you sit down and you decide, like, what kind of person do you want to be? What do you want to embody? And when you do that, it becomes really clear, you know, what kinds of moves and shifts you have to make in your world. And for me, that was hard. Like, I feel like a recovering people pleaser.
Yeah.
But I realized at some point that, like, I can continue to just say yes and yes and yes and please this person and please that person. But then, like, how do I feel after that, right? Like, I feel drained because I'm constantly pouring out. I'm constantly, like, giving my energy away to this and that and this event and this thing. And that doesn't serve me and where I want to go. And, like, going back to the fact that, like, we have one life to live, like, and we're not guaranteed any, like, amount of time. So, like, every single day you have to make those decisions of, like, am I filling myself up, or am I, you know, pouring out? And is this the kind of person I want to be? Do I constantly want to feel drained and just, like, low energy and I don't have anything to give because I'm giving it all away just for the sake of making other people happy? Yeah. Or am I going to make myself happy and figure out what those things are?
Well, it's a difficult, I don't want to call it balance, a difficult thing to strike, right? Like, I guess you could say it's a difficult balance to strike. I hate the word balance because I don't believe that it exists, especially in these types of scenarios.
Yeah.
Because you have to be either 100% in on what you're doing or 100% in on going to this family event or whatever it is. You know, you can't, like, again, you can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You can't have that backup plan. You have to be present in whatever you're doing, or else you're going to be sitting there at this family event and you're going to be miserable because you're thinking about your work and you're just going to be basically a shell of yourself there. And nobody's going to have fun with you being there, and you're not going to have fun being there, and vice versa. You know, if you're working but you want to be at that family event, like,
yeah,
there's no balance to be struck there, in my opinion. So you have to like really just commit yourself to those things, and like, you know, does it serve you to go do that? Like, yeah, maybe it does. So go do it. You know, whether it is showing up to work and bailing on the family event, or bailing on work and showing up to the family event. Like, you have to do what's making you happy. And I don't think a lot of us are programmed that way, you know, just by society to be selfish. Like, we're always taught, like, if you're selfish, you're a bad person. But why is that? We need to respect our time and fill our cup so we can give to other people, right? So,
well, I think we have so many conversations about that in our own life because we're married. And we, you know, even with each other, like, we have to say, like, you know, there's times when I am like, no, I've got to stay home. Like, I just need like some time to myself, or I just like, I can't do this thing, or I can't do that thing. And that takes a lot of practice and a lot of
well, even the fact that, like, I tell people this all the time, but like, clearly we're married. We live in the same house. And there's times where we don't like really talk for a week, and we're in the same damn house, but we're both so focused on our businesses. Like, obviously we'll like lay down and talk at night, but like, for the most part, our days, like, we don't see each other. We're not like communicating because we're so focused on the task at hand. And, you know, obviously, like you said, that's a lot of practice to get to the point of saying like, hey, we're both going to be very selfish this week, or whatever it is. Or, you know, if I have something going on, or you do, or we're traveling, like, that is a lot of practice that has gone into that. It's not an easy thing, but it has propelled our businesses in a very rapid way, because we can say, cool, we're dedicating our time to this thing.
Well, I think that's like the whole idea of this podcast, right? Like, Scared of Normal. I think that there's a way that maybe like marriage is looked at, in, you know, a way that you have to interact with your spouse. And for us, I think that we've definitely veered away from that, right? Like, we both do have really big passions and really big things outside of, you know, each other too. And we've had to like work those muscles of communicating that and setting our boundaries, but also being really, really intentional with the time that we do have together, because obviously our marriage is like something that's so important to us too. But
well, and it all comes back down to intention, right? And that's like the big thing. So intention and communication. So whether it is a marriage or a relationship with, you know, your business partner or a friend or whatever it is, if you're not being as communicative as possible and as intentional as possible with that time, like, there are going to be hard times and there's going to be rifts. And not to say that, like, you know, that I don't experience that with you or like with Sean or whatever, but like, you know, it is a little better because we can have the hard conversations, and like, the hard conversations get easier when you have them more and more. So like, again, for me, it always comes back down to like dedicating yourself to something, communicating as much as possible, and being very intentional with every decision that you make. Yeah. Because if you're not doing that, like, you're missing out on, you know, what is to be had. You know, you're realistically almost wasting your time.
Well, and I think that brings us back to like, fake it till you make it, right? And everything.
It totally does. Well, like, you know, it's one of those things where I saw, you know, growing up, like, I was fortunate enough to be around people that have had very successful businesses and seen very large amounts of success. And I saw that they weren't just talking about it. You know, they were walking it and they were talking it, and they backed it up. And these people were also in there working with their employees or whatever. Like, they were embodying what they were portraying. They were that.
So there's a Cardi B. I'm going to call her out. There's a Cardi B song, and your girl loves some Cardi B and Nicki Minaj. But there's a song, and one of the lines in the song, oh my gosh, I hope I make this right. But it's talking about the people who are talking the most shit are the people whose shit isn't together. Yeah. So I think too, like, that kind of goes into what you're saying. It's like, the people who are actually embodying this lifestyle, they're not the ones out there like talking your face off or like trying to make it seem like this or that. Yeah. They're the ones who like have their shit together, and they're like, I'm going to do this.
I was actually talking to a business owner here in Longmont who is incredible. She's made some incredible businesses. I won't say her name yet because we're going to do a podcast with her in the future. So I'm excited for that. But we were talking about exactly what you're talking about, the people who, talk the most shit. And it's usually people who, everybody has an opinion. Mm-hmm. And what I was talking with her about was like, I've gotten to a point in my life, and this is over many years, I've been doing this for almost a decade now, which is pretty bizarre to think about between my time here with Traction and Hotbox and all the things in between, like almost a decade. So I've learned a lot over that decade because I've tried to be a sponge in the environments that I'm in. But I told her, I was like, the thing that I've really learned is everybody has an opinion of how something could be done better. It's easy to offer that opinion. Like you could watch a movie or listen to a song and be like, man, they should have said this or they should have done this. It's like, yeah, but you don't understand all the amount of hard work it took just to get to that point. Mm-hmm. Until you understand the amount of work that went into something, do not offer your 2 cents because like you don't even get what it took to say those words or whatever it is, So like, you can't offer that perspective if you're not willing to understand the amount of hard work that went into something. You can't be a hater if you don't understand or attempt to understand what went into a project.
Right.
Because at that point, you're not offering like any sort of value. Mm-hmm. You're just offering an opinion, So for myself, I've tried to be more aware of that too. Like every time, I've talked about this in a previous episode too, but like, every time I watch a movie and I'm like, how was that scene shot? Like, I want to know like the depth of whatever it was, because if I was going to offer some sort of an opinion, I don't want to like negate the hard work that went into it.
Right.
And like when I was at this lady's shop talking about that, it's like, dude, it's crazy how many people will say, well, you should try this or you should have done it this way. And it's like, well, what makes you think we didn't try that?
Yeah.
Like just offering 2 cents without understanding, what went into getting to this point, like that's a little slippery. So
that just pulls us back too to like the intentionality of everything.
Yep.
Intentionality with the words that you choose to speak, intentionality with the people that you choose to interact with, intentionality with every piece of your day. And I think it can be so easy to slip into just going through the motions or just letting other people choose for you.
Certainly.
But yeah, you got to pull it back. Yeah. You got to be intentional with every aspect of everything that you're doing.
Well, and not only respect your time, but respect other people's time and what they've created and done, right? Because like that's a big thing too. It's easy to look at something somebody else is doing. Oh, that must be nice. We're all very guilty of that. Oh, I wish I could do that. Well, you can. What has that person done to get to that point? That's what I want to know. I want to know each step that went into it, and not for a roadmap, but for the sake of like, I respect that you've gotten to this point.
Yeah.
Fuck, if you showed up to the gym one time or you ran one marathon or whatever it is, I respect the fuck out of that because you're doing hard things. And, I worked for somebody for a long time that always told me, root for the underdog. You see like, the overweight person running down the street who's struggling and really, really like having a hard time, but they're out there running. Root for that person 100 times more than you see the super fit person. Cause like clearly they've got it figured out. Yeah. They've been doing it, but it's so much harder for that person, that is not fit out there making it happen. They are making the dream come true. And that's the person I want to root for because we all know how fucking hard that is, right?
That shit's inspiring.
Dude,
it's
it
like,
really
fuck
is.
yes,
Those are the people I want to give high fives to because, like, you know how hard that is.
Yeah, and they're making that choice for themselves, and you can see that,
well,
right?
Well, they know, like, and they know that they're going to be met with criticism, right? Like, how easy is it to pick on the underdog in whatever scenario it is? I'm just using this one because you can illustrate it a little bit better in your head, right? But like, it's easy to pick on the underdog and be like, that person sucks. Look how bad they are at doing X. It's so easy to do that. But like, let's switch that mindset into saying like, damn, look how that person's venturing out and doing something that's fucking hard. Yeah. What can I do to challenge myself and do something hard? How can I cheer for that person? Because when you're cheering for other people, that brings you up too, right? Let's clap for more people
Let's clap for more people.
I love that. You know,
Yes.
it's true though. Like, let's
100%.
clap for more people that are doing hard things.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing hard things that I don't necessarily think like are my cup of tea, but it's still fucking hard. Like, I want to celebrate that because you believe, you've set that belief system and you are working towards that. That's huge. You know, I know that because I live that too. And like, I love seeing people take that step. And, you know, it is fucking scary to fake it till you make it. And show up every day and try and embody the idea of what you have in your head and turn into that person or start that business that turns into that thing. That's fucking scary, dude. But it gets easier with practice. Everything does. Like, you know, I brought it up I keep saying I brought something up on a previous episode, but like I did, like, think about, you know, walking or driving a car. Think about how scary it was the first time you drove a car. And now you drive that thing around like it's nothing. Because you've practiced every single day. And, you know, sometimes it's still scary. Sometimes you get cut off guard. Sometimes you get into a fender bender. But we're always learning. So just be aware. And, you know, I think that kind of leads us into, like, the next big thing is, like, realistically, nobody is going to believe in your dreams more than you do. And no one has the power to happen more than you have that power to make it happen. So start taking the steps in that right direction, right? Like, it's... And I think that's another big thing is like when you have these big or outlandish dreams and you tell somebody, people can't see your vision. It's very hard to see a vision. It's very hard to communicate a vision.
It is hard. And it's, like the fact that nobody's going to believe in it more than you do. That was something that for a while was hard for me to understand. But then once I like was able to understand that, like it clicked for me. Like, nobody's going to believe in this more than me. I can say it. I can show people. I can like tell somebody like this is what I want to do. This is what I want to create. But it's not going to hit home to them the way that it hits home to me. And that really like, it was a little bit like liberating in the fact that like, okay, there's not going to be anybody like waking me up and like pushing me into, you know, doing the things that I'm telling myself I'm going to do every day to be the most successful version of myself. Like I can tell you and you can wake my ass up and try and push me, which you do. And I think that like having that support system is huge. But yeah, it's wild. That
you gotta want it for you.
You really do. And it goes back to that decision making too. It's like once you've decided it, you have to live it.
Yeah. Well, and you hear people talk about it all the time too. It's like they have these crazy or outlandish dreams and like nobody believed in them until it was successful. Like you hear people talk about that all the time. And then when you're successful, everybody wants to be your friend and everybody wants a piece of the pie. Like, and that's very true, you know, because like it is hard to communicate the vision or to see the vision on the other side of that. And like, yeah, I don't know. That's like it's a difficult place to be in. But if you're not showing up every day for yourself, like, because there are going to be the haters and they're going to be the people that downplay it and they're going to be people that tell you. They're going to
be the loudest ones, you know. They're going to be the ones that you're hearing the most. Yeah.
And like, you just got to silence that because 9 times out of 10, in my personal experience, those people are the ones who also have outlandish ideas or dreams, but they're scared to pursue them. And, you know, their fear of pursuing a dream, they're just reflecting that on you to you know, because you shouldn't be able to do something that they can't do.
Right. It's just a reflection. Well, and that goes into like their belief is so limited. They don't believe in the things that they want. And so they're going to project that out onto you when you are doing the things, you know? Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard to like get out of that mindset, you know, and it's hard to not listen to those people who are being the naysayers, right? And like, and it comes back for me, like I've tried to get more into that mindset of like, let's clap for other people. I'm not going to criticize somebody else's idea or dream. Like I want to hear it and I want to hear it in depth. And like, if I can add value, I'm going to, but I'm not going to just say something for the sake of saying it, because I've experienced that with people where people tell me like something where they're not like even attempting to interpret my vision. They just want to put their 2 cents into it. And it's like, I don't know. So you kind of have to, again, you have to be very firm in your belief system when you make your decision. And if somebody is challenging you in a way that you don't think is going to benefit you, you just got to turn it off, you know? And it's hard sometimes to decipher what is going to benefit your business or you personally, and what is going to, chain you down and hold you back.
Yeah.
So, it's practice is what that is again.
Practice, and it goes back to like that circle of control, right? Like you have control over who you let take your energy,
Yep.
who you let, into your world, what kind of content you're consuming. So like hold true to what you said you wanted and the boundaries that you said you wanted to put in place.
Yep. Well, I think, just talking about that right there, like you're saying, like it is hard to be around a lot of people, basically, right? Like the more people you have around you, the more likelihood it is that people are going to doubt that vision or doubt the dream or whatever it might be. And I never understood that, as I looked at these people who are wildly successful, I never understood why they had such a small group of friends. And it's not that they're looking for yes men. In fact, they're looking for quite the opposite. They're looking for people who tell them hard things, but they're also adding value in their life. And I think that is so, so freaking important. And it comes back to making that decision of, hey, I've decided to grow and pursue something and make myself better. Yeah. And you're kind of vetting who's coming around you at that point, because you want people who aren't telling you yes for the sake of telling you like yes. Like I drives me so crazy, like when I show somebody something and they like glance at it, like, yeah, it looks cool. Like, like I want you to tell me it sucks or like why it looks, like I want that. And so reason. Like, I've started to experience that in my own life where like I'm trying to put myself around people who can tell me straight up, like honestly what they think. And that honesty is filled with value because they're attempting to understand where I'm at or what I'm saying, right? So.
And that, I think, almost leads into one of our last points that we wanted to hit on, which was that if you're not growing yourself, you're not growing a business.
Yeah. Or, I want to translate that too to like being an athlete. Like, you have to always set your sights on growing personally. Yeah. Before you can, attempt to grow as an entrepreneur or an athlete or an artist. Like it's an all around, all encompassing thing, right?
And setting those boundaries with people or like, making like diligent effort towards something, like those are all things that are going to grow you and then in turn grow your business. And I think too, your business or, whatever passion it is that you're pursuing, when you are pursuing something like that, like it's going to be a mirror into yourself. Like every time you feel that like, like that icky feeling in your body of like, oh, I really don't want to do that. It's like, those are the things that you have to grow in. Those are the things that you have to do. Those are the like
you almost
uncomfortable.
Have to push into those moments.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and it really is like a mirror of like, okay, these are the things that I struggle with. These are the things that I need to grow in as a human so that I can grow into the life that I want to live. And I've got to heal it and I've got to practice it and I've got to get better at it. And I have to put myself in that uncomfortability so that it's not uncomfortable at some point, you know?
It's all about practice, right? And showing up every day and making hard things seem somewhat simple. Yeah. Like that's a hard thing to do, It is. I've told you this, and I might have talked about it on a podcast episode already, but, right as COVID was starting, like I had this really like, I don't know if it's necessarily profound. I thought it was pretty fucking profound. It was pretty profound for you. But like, I was learning how to use Adobe After Effects, which is like an animation software if you're not familiar with it. And I was like, man, I just wish I was just good at this. And I'm like watching these tutorials on YouTube and these guys are making it look so easy. Right. And it dawned on me that nobody's actually just good at anything. It's just a lot of fucking practice that went into that action. And I like related it back to me riding a bike or, the things that I know how to do in business now. It's like, holy shit, like the amount of practice that went into something that somebody looks at now and they think the same thing. I I wish I could just do that too. Yeah. It's like, yeah, we're all guilty of that. And like, we're all guilty again of not digging past the surface and saying like, holy shit, a lot of work went into you making that look easy. Yeah. I love when people can make things look easy because that they care about their craft. They've made a decision and like
they're disciplined in it.
They're disciplined. And like if you want to be good at anything, it is make the decision, practice every day, show up as your best self. And it doesn't mean that you have to be dedicating 100% of your time. Just do it a little bit every day. 1%. 1% better every day. 0.5% better. That's all you have to do.
If you could get 0.5% better at whatever it is every single day, like how
it's like
wild.
Interest, right?
It compounds,
like compounding
yeah.
interest. Like if you can get 1% better every day, well, what happens after a year? What happens after 3 years, 10 years?
Yeah.
Like it's pretty fucking wild. And so if you set that up in your personal life as saying, I want to grow, that kind of leaks into every other piece of your life. Whether it is, you want that promotion at your job. Hell yeah. Pursue growth every single day and not just at work. Pursue growth at home. Pursue you like barbecuing? Pursue growth in barbecuing. Fuck it. It doesn't matter. Be the best damn barbecuer in the world. Never settle, right? Like never settle. So
yeah,
I think that kind of brings us to the end of this one.
Closed with that. Yeah, for sure. I think our last. Okay, I want to say this last thing.
Yeah.
And we touched on it earlier a little bit, but and you kind of talked about it in like you said a lot like when people from the outside are looking in are like, oh my gosh, that must be nice that you get to do that, or you have a podcast, wow, how incredible, like I wish I could do that, or whatever it is. And I think one of the coolest things I've realized is that there literally is no magic sauce to anything. There is no prescription. There is no like step-by-step like
no
rule book
button
for anything. There's not an easy button like we were saying earlier. And it's like, when you really think about that, like I think it, for me, was so freeing. It's like, wow, if you can do it, I can do it, right? Like if that person that I'm watching and I'm inspired by can do that, like I can do that, right? Yep. They don't have anything different than me. They're not any, better of a person at any, different thing. They're just more practiced. They're more disciplined. They're, they've been making this decision for longer than I've been making this decision.
Yeah, they started faking it a little bit before you did.
Yeah, exactly. So when you realize like there isn't like that thing that makes somebody else more successful than you.
Yeah, there's no magic catalyst that you can just, there's like, what's that movie? Limitless? Where he takes that pill and like he's
that's not a thing.
Insanely like a brilliant guy. Like that, but that's like, when people are looking for that, that's kind of what they're looking for. And it's like, I would love if that exists. That would be sick. But but it doesn't. And like it doesn't exist like that in anybody's world. And again, like we're very fortunate to have this really cool network of friends and people that we're surrounded by through Traction and like these different endeavors in our life. And like I think something that I've really started to realize about these people over the last few years is like nobody follows the rules. There are no fucking rules.
Yeah.
And that's like, that's another one of those things where it talks going back to like, you can't be selfish. Society teaches us that. Well, society also teaches us that you have to follow the rules and that you have to get a job in this fashion. You have to go to work in this way.
There's a timeline for everything.
Somebody created that. That's not like some mandatory rule. Like, and I think that that's like why you see these wildly successful peoples like the Elon Musks or the Jeff Bezos or the Steve Jobs is because every sense of their being challenges the status quo. And they have been, obviously they have teams and teams and teams of brilliant and super like amazing people behind them, but they had to cultivate that somehow.
Yeah.
And it's because they were challenging the status quo and they wanted to be rule breakers and trendsetters and being able to step back from quote unquote reality and say like, cool, what is the utopia that I want to create? What is the world that I want to live in?
Yeah.
Cool. Go do that shit. Because it's up to you, like that's why art is so incredible because there are no fucking rules. So think about life in that way. Like there really aren't any rules.
Right.
Everything we know and abide by every single day, like somebody created that. It wasn't just here for us when we showed up.
Right.
Like it's pretty crazy to think about that, right? Like that's, and I think, for people that I've been fortunate enough to be around that are successful, that is the number one thing. They've created their own rule book.
Yeah.
And obviously other people show up to that job and abide by the rules that they've created, but it is their own set of rules.
And they're moving forward, right? Like you're moving forward, even if it's just like one step every day.
Progress.
If you can just set your sights on like, I'm even learning that. And now I feel like I'm understanding your like bike analogies so much more now that I'm riding a bike in the gym. But it's like, you know, I'm riding this bike and there's this like screen in front of me and it's showing me like this path that I'm on. And I'm like getting up to this hill, right? And it's like, I am like, okay, if I can just like push through to the top of this hill, then I like get myself to the top of the hill and there's like maybe a quick like descend and then it's like another hill is in front of me. So it's like just set your sights on like taking that one next step, make that next right decision. Pour your efforts into like achieving just like that little bit more.
Well, just maintaining momentum, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's like the biggest thing with that shit. It's like, once you make a decision and you start embodying that decision, momentum comes with that, I think.
Like it creates itself.
It does
really.
create itself. And that's like another one of those things. Like people want the secret to success. People also want the secret to like, if I could just get motivated.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you the secret to that. You just got to put your fucking head down and do it because that's the only way that you're going to get motivated. Like some days I am wildly motivated and other days I just want to sleep on the couch and do nothing. But those are the days that I feel the most accomplished because I'm getting up and saying, okay, I'm going to go ride my bike for a little bit. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to work and send these emails and I'm going to go stop by some, you know, retailers for our coffee. And I'm going to do the hard things and I'm going to keep my momentum going. And that then creates the motivation. Right? So,
and that leads you back into like you're leaning into making yourself better on those days. Like, and like we said, it's not always constantly like this, you know, business effort. It's not always this like business task that you're checking off. But if you can lean back into like, okay, how can I grow myself? How can I pour into myself so that I can pour into others? So I can pour into my business. How do I fill myself up first? And I think on those hard days where it is really hard to find that motivation, that's where I tend to lean into is like, okay, well, how can I make myself better so that I can show up better? And it's like without fail every single time. I like can flip it around, right? Like every single time you like wake up and you're like, oh, I'm not motivated, but I'm going to go ride my bike first. You come back and you're doing something for your business. So,
well, yeah, it's because you're getting yourself out of that headspace. You are what you think. You are your thoughts. So if you're thinking that you're not motivated, well, fuck yeah, you're not going to be motivated. So like get out of that headspace and like,
you create your own reality.
Yeah. Is it going and riding your bike? Is it going for a run? Is it barbecuing? Is it cleaning your damn fridge? I don't know. Do something that like, you know what I mean though? Like sometimes like for me it is like, I'm like, oh shit, my house is dirty or our house is dirty. So like I'll clean and then I'm like in the mood to like start working because I like kickstarted that, you know? And it's like, it is momentum and movement and like carrying that forward and like, again, once you can make the decision of whatever you're going after, if you decide and you don't put that plan B or you take the what if out of your head, then you start moving with precision and with speed, you know, like that's
that urgency, that intention.
Yeah, because you don't have an alternative. Like, you know, earlier you said, oh, it must be nice to have a podcast. And like something I don't think we've necessarily talked about with this podcast, but when me and Sean decided on moving forward with this project, I bought, you know, pretty expensive equipment and we did this whole room and, you know,
jumped in head first.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time curating this space and this concept. And the reason that we did that was because I was like, okay, if we're spending all of this money and all of this time, there is no plan B. I will not allow it. However, if we would have just been like, oh, we'll do it at our kitchen table with some cheap mics, like there would have been a plan B.
Yeah, that you wouldn't have shown up every week. We wouldn't have
shown up the same way. So like it is just committing with every piece of your being and saying like, you know, even still, it's like the reason, you know, that you're here on this episode is Sean's in Italy right now. And like, we didn't have time to film a couple episodes or record a couple episodes. So it was like, okay, we're going to make do because we committed to an episode every single Friday. So we're doing it, you know,
did it.
And that's, you know, you just have to commit and follow through with your commitments. So
100%.
Fake it till you make it every single day, baby.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's, I don't know if I have much more.
I think we covered it all. That was good.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like pumped up after
feeling
that.
Motivated?
I'm ready.
All
let's
right,
go.
Let's go do some work. Well, yeah, if you're still here, thank you for being here. We had a blast chatting with you guys. This was a super fun episode. If you'd like to see or hear more episodes like this, definitely let us know. We're always open to different topics. If there's anything you're interested in, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, we do have an episode coming down the pipe. Sean's in Italy for the next 2.5 weeks. So once he gets back, we have an episode coming out next Friday, actually, with Joey Schuessler. What's the date on that one? Let me just look real quick for you guys.
The 9th.
The 9th. So September 9th, we have an episode with Joey Schuessler coming out. We've got a ton of other awesome guest episodes in the pipeline, including Cheyanne's. So we'll get on that one as soon as Sean gets back. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here, for being part of the Traction family. We endlessly appreciate each and every one of you guys. And if you're enjoying these episodes, whether it's on Spotify, Amazon, or Apple, we really appreciate if you guys could leave us a review, leave us some love, share it with your friends if this one spoke to you. If you're listening to it on YouTube, definitely like, comment, subscribe, do your thing. Let us know you're here. And with that, keep being scared of normal. We'll see you on the next one.
And we're